everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Dollar Bin Bandits. I'm Mike Farah, and we have a fantastic guest for you today. His name is Leinil Francis Yu, and he has worked on the top titles with the top writers for the last 30 plus years. And he has a lot to say about his work, teaming up with those writers, doing some of those projects. So let's not delay any further. Let's get to it. This is Leinil Francis Yu. We have artist Leinil Francis Yu with us. Leinil, how are you?
I'm very well. I'm doing really good and honored to be here.
Welcome to the show. We're going to start you off the way we do with all of our guests, which is, how did you first discover comic books?
I live in the Philippines, so we are always exposed to comics. My aunt has some old comic books in her room before, but they're mostly DuckTales and Archie comics and stuff like that. I did have some exposure to Marvel comics, just a few of them, because we didn't have that much comic book stores back when I was a kid. But when I was 11, my mom got me the How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. We just passed by it by accident in the mall, and it was on sale. It was I think it was worth $2 then. I mean today's money, but then it's probably worth more. I don't know. And I use it as reference for drawing, and I've been hooked. But I didn't start collecting till I was high school. My first comic book I bought was Spawn 11, and I did come across some comics when I was a little. Yeah, my brother had some New Universe comic books.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Justice. I remember DP7 and some Daredevil and stuff like that. But it's yeah.
Nice. Do you have any of those original comics? Either the ones with your aunt?
I don't think so. They've been lost. I still remember fondly. I had a Dan Jurgens Superman, which I thought the art was incredible. It was Superman without powers when he lost his powers, and he was against Mammoth. And I still remember, fondly how I love the artwork on that one. But yeah, I don't think those comic books survived.
That might have been the same storyline that I broke in on, which was that the crisis of the Crimson Kryptonite, where he lost his powers, he got a robot suit, or maybe it was before that or after.
I'm not really sure. It was Dan Jurgens inked by Art Bear. So
yeah,
it might have been a long time ago.
It might have been those books. I remember them well because those were among the first that I got, and I really love them too.
Mm-hmm.
So you got a unique start in the business in that you won Wizards Drawing Board contest. Is that right?
I think it's a misunderstood tale.
Okay.
It's true that I did win Wizard comic art contests, but that didn't break me into comics. That was it was Whilce Portacio studio. Oh, hold on. So before everything else, I did one comic book for a small company called Entity Comics. They published Zen Intergalactic Ninja.
Mm-hmm.
And I did like an issue of Aster, the Last Celestial Knight, one of those smaller comic book companies but this was the boom of comics, so they were selling 20,000 copies, and that was they're like a tiny company back then.
Right.
So 20,000 was like it was like a small print run. So I did an issue of that one, but nothing came off of it. It was like a dead end, but Whilce Portacio, he came, for everyone knows him, he came to the Philippines. He built a studio. He tried to recruit a bunch of guys, talent to work for Wildstorm. Supposedly, he was like setting up a studio as a satellite studio for Wildstorm, doing some extra work for the company. But unfortunately, so I submitted my work to Whilce, and like a year after, I was training with him. I was just hanging out with the guys that he hired. A year after, he brought my work over to Marvel Comics and then to San Diego Comic-Con. So I got my break there. What Wizard did was that just because I was a Wizard guy, I was a Wizard fan. I did, I did win some drawing board contests, some envelope art things. They supported my work. They promoted me a lot. They wrote some articles about me. They gave me cover gigs from the very start. They paid really good money, even in today's standards. So, and so they didn't break me in, but they did help me, help my career tremendously by putting me in the top 10 and giving cover gigs and, the coverage, letting me do how to draw Wolverine and stuff like that. So they did support me a lot, for sure.
So it sounds like between Wizard and Whilce Portacio, those were the two big, I guess, impetus to getting into the industry. So you talked a little bit already about Whilce. Can you say a little bit more about the role he played and how he did you approach him? Did he approach you as a young artist?
So no, he was searching for talent for sure. So we submitted a lot of work to him. So he's getting a lot of like stacks of submissions from different artists, young kids and stuff like that. But at first he didn't like my work because I wasn't ready yet. I was aping his style. I was copying him. I was very raw back then. But one of his guys, Jerry Alandilan, who later on became my partner, he was one of the first hirees there as an inker. So he convinced Whilce to give me a shot, so after he relented eventually. Whilce didn't like my work at first, but fortunately he got convinced after Jerry's prodding. Oh, by the way, before that, Jay Lee came to the Philippines to promote Hellshock or something. He'd held like a drawing contest, and I was like second place. So I saw him recently. We were joking about that. It was like we were talking about whatever happened to the guy who won first place. I'm not sure. I can't remember exactly, but yeah, that was fun. So I think the stuff I submitted to Jay, I also put in my portfolio as well to Whilce. But yeah, so Whilce got me in. We trained for a bit. We were supposed to do some work for Wildstorm, but that was a downturn of the huge comic book bubble. So suddenly the work started to dry up, and a lot of books got canceled. That was like the Heroes Reborn era,
right? Where
the image people are coming back to Marvel, right? So it means like the boom has ended. Even the biggest guys are now going back home, right? And the prodigal sons are now doing Marvel stuff. So that was a bad timing. But we 1 year after, he got me the Wolverine gig, and that was huge. That was a really lucky break, because they could have put me on like a tiny title, instead of the number 4 book of that month, of that year.
Right.
So that cemented my career for sure.
And how was that, breaking in on such a big title?
Mm-hmm.
Did you feel, even though you had done, a little bit of work before that, did you feel any kind of pressure or intimidation coming onto Wolverine as sort of straight out of the gate in Marvel?
Funny enough, I don't remember having like a nervous breakdown or anything like that. I was 19. I was 19 or 20 at that age, or I don't know, maybe probably 18. But I didn't really feel that much intense pressure. I probably didn't realize how big a deal that was. But I just took it one issue at a time, and I was really surprised how my work was positively the positive reception I got, especially looking back at the stuff I was doing. It's like, so I just got really lucky, and I guess good timing and stuff like that, because a lot of artists today the new artists nobody heard of, and their first works are just tremendous. I think the standards today has just gotten way much better, and so yeah, I'm blessed to have broken in during that time.
Was Wolverine a favorite character of yours? And of course, you went on to the X-Men shortly after Wolverine. Were they in the top tier for you?
Of course. I was during that time I was reading Death Blow Wolverine by Aaron Weissenfeld. I think, do you remember that? That's a really good issue. A couple of issues. So I was looking at his work, and I guess it even influenced my earlier stuff. So yeah, Wolverine was for sure one of my favorites back then.
And I'm going to hop around a little bit, but speaking of Wolverine, you know, one of the big books you worked on was Ultimate Wolverine versus Hulk, with Damon Lindelof. Did you know Damon and his work before getting on that assignment?
Yeah, I was a huge fan of Lost, so I was really thrilled, and it was a lot of fun, and Lost was huge for me. I was I followed it. Well, I downloaded a lot of it. That was those olden days. I had no access to the actual channels that showed it, but that was a huge part of my early life, and I was really thrilled to be picked as an artist for it. So yeah, huge fan of Lost. So I was thrilled, huge fan of Damon.
And when you got the first scripts, were you blown away as we all were, sure, with the opening scene and the sort of violence perpetrated there?
I had to draw it twice, because the first time I when Damon asked, Damon wrote the script where he's like ripping Wolverine apart, Hulk was ripping Wolverine apart. I was thinking the comics code would not allow it, and so I couldn't be that gory and stuff like that. So I had to, I was ripping it. I didn't show the actual, the body getting ripped. So that became a variant cover, I think. So they asked me to redraw the whole thing, where Wolverine's actually being ripped into past tense.
Yeah.
So that was wild for sure.
Yeah.
That was the time where we had to draw blood as black.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah.
Before they got rid of the comics code.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not even sure if we have the comics code in that particular comic book, but that was still quite part of the consciousness during that time.
I think it was probably shortly thereafter that I think Marvel started moving away from that. It was all part of that kind of era of experimentation and really kind of, blowing things out. So maybe you can get it recolored with red blood. I wonder if that's a great idea.
I'm not sure. Yeah. I think later issues did have red blood, I think, or did they actually tell me red blood is okay? But during the year prior to that, 2 years, I was drawing everything black.
Right.
Blood is black.
Right. So I wanted to move on to another project, which was New Avengers, and so I mean, your career sort of is just like one sort of big crescendo, and that seems like an even bigger book than what you'd been working on before, although you've been working on big books already. So was it how did that come about? Was it Bendis that approached you, and were you just in the mode where wherever Wolverine goes, I'm going to draw that book?
To be honest, all my career moves are just emails from editors, and whatever they hand me in, I think they all planned it. Like they have a meeting and they pick artists for particular books and stuff like that, because they never compete for my services. There's always just one editor who offers me something, right, one at a time. So I think they have meetings and plan stuff up. So whatever they offer me, I usually just it's probably just everything they offer is just really good. So I can't say no to them. So one of the titles they offered was New Avengers. It was, I think it was only one issue, issue 22 or something like that. And after that, I think the reception was good. They liked what I did, so they gave me more. Gave me a longer run. But I was only supposed to be doing one issue.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a particular character you liked drawing on that team? Maybe non-X-Men related?
I mean, Luke Cage. I love drawing, his face and stuff like that. He's just wearing a black tank top, and just drawing his head is quite, enjoyable. It's fun, and I did get to draw a lot of guys. Spider-Man was there, and Doctor Strange, I think, right? So it was a fun mix. But yeah, I mean, Luke Cage was fun.
And I have to ask, because now we've talked about a few separate projects where you've tackled Wolverine in various permutations. Is there one version or look of that character that you like the best, if you had to choose?
I just like drawing him without the mask, usually, Yeah, so I really don't care about the costume that much, because they basically look the same to me. But I like drawing him without the mask, and just with the hair on, and the complete look. Yeah,
I'm sensing a trend. It's facial expressions that kind of get you excited. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
So the editors, or you, or everybody, must have liked working together there with Bendis, because you followed it up with Secret Invasion, which is now a series on Disney Plus. Was that again sort of an editor, an assignment from an editor?
I never campaigned for any work. I never asked for any project. It was just being offered to me, and it just turns out that everything they offer is always something that I like to do. And even up to this point, although I haven't been drawing interiors, but everything they asked me to draw is something I'm interested in. So especially, my first major event. Is it my only event? It's probably my first, the only major event I'm in. And just a lucky break, I guess. I think they first offered it to Frank Cho. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But
okay.
Yeah. And for some scheduling reasons, Frank didn't do it. So I was the second pick, whatever.
Well, I think it turned out really well.
Thank you.
So I have to ask you about the show. Were you in any way involved? And if you've seen the show, what do you think of it?
I was not involved at all. They did invite me to see the premiere, and I've only seen 2 episodes so far. I'm planning to binge it. But yeah, I think it's promising. It's very different from the comic book. Is all I can say. It's very, they had to change it tremendously for television, and obviously the Nick Fury character is quite prominent for TV, because compared to the series, and it doesn't feature the big heroes. But I think it's it's potentially going to be good. I'm not sure which episode is out right now. Is that episode 4?
I think, well, maybe episode 4 might have come out today. Yeah.
Okay.
So I haven't seen that episode, but I've seen up to 3. But yeah, very different from the comic.
Very different, yeah.
And you understand why they have to do it. But part of the greatness of yours and Bendis's run was seeing these superheroes as Skrulls, which I think was kind of a little bit of the magic sauce. But that's why comics are comics. I mean, you could do whatever you want in them, and that's why I think they're kind of special. And the TV show obviously has to work into the MCU and things like that. So it's a different animal, I suppose.
Yeah. that's what Mark Millar always says. That's why he loves comic books. Is the reason is that he can have any idea, and budget is no, not an issue yet, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I wanted to ask you, I mean, speaking of Millar, is it pronounced Millar instead of Millar? That's another.
I think it's Millar. I think
Okay.
it's Millar, like Frank Miller.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, but we have to distinguish it somehow.
Right. Exactly. Okay, so I mean, you've worked with him. I'm sort of ticking down a lot of the great writers that you've worked with, which is Bendis, Millar, Waid, Lindelof, one of only a few that he's worked with. And I guess my question is, even though you've had this sort of mediation of editorial, what do you think makes for a good artist writer pairing? Because some of these you've worked with multiple times, like Bendis and Waid. Is there something that you find that gets you in sync with the writer more than something else?
I think I'm just lucky to be working with really good writers. I think they allow artists to just do their own thing. They're not too overly instructive in their plots. And to be honest, they're all equally great. Some are more challenging than others. I always say Bendis is very challenging because of the number of panels and characters he puts in every issue and every page. But they're all excellent to work with, and they know how to just let the artist breathe, and just to let us do our thing. With Mark Millar, he's just a tremendous guy, and he's I'm really lucky to have worked with him. Really fun. I love doing his scripts, and I really enjoy working with him equally, to be honest. Lindelof even especially has some TV sensibilities, and it translates really well to comic books. I'm not really sure what qualities that makes them jive with me. I think they have that. I don't know, to be honest, but I really do enjoy working with them almost equally. Yeah, for sure.
So I know you've worked with a number of writers and continue to work with a number more. How is it on case by case how receptive they are to if you have ideas, not necessarily maybe story ideas, but sort of layout or things of that nature?
Oh, okay. So I don't usually deviate much from the script. Part laziness and part I don't want to mess things up. With Scott Lobdell and Andy Deagle, where I did Prater and stuff, I did send them, before the script was done, I did send them a bunch of drawings, a bunch of ideas that they wrote into the script. I think that's the furthest I've gone. But everything else, I just waited for the script, waited for the references, and I did my thing. I don't really, I believe that comic books are like a production line, right? So I'm like the third part of the factory. The editors and the writers talk it out, and it's my turn, and then hand it over to the inkers and colorists. So I don't usually try to overreach my so I just stay in my lane, so to speak, my corner, and so
Well, what you do in your lane is, I think, contributes greatly, if not predominantly, to the story that ends up being on the page. So
thank you.
Thank you on behalf of the fans for your part in the
thanks. Would
process.
be fun to have like a variant comic book, right? Like same script, two artists, and then they print it
Yeah.
out, right? So we'll see how different a comic book would look like if two different artists did it without trying to see each other's works, and that could be fun.
I think that would be great with the old
Mhm.
Marvel method, where
Mhm.
all you got, instead of getting a tight script,
Oh yeah,
all
that's
you got
true.
was sort of a plot and maybe a
That's
page
gonna
by
be,
page.
yeah,
That would be
that would
very interesting.
definitely, yeah. But even with a newer method, I think there would still be some differences. It's gonna be less for sure, because they number the panels and stuff like that, and they actually specify the shot that sometimes they don't, they rarely do it, but they do sometimes. But I think it's still an interesting experiment, I think, to have different artists do even the modern plots where they number the panels. I
Right.
think, but I don't think we have the budget for that.
Maybe one day we'll figure out a project for that.
Mhm.
You haven't done a lot of work for DC, but
Mhm.
you did do what I consider, one of the best stories, and certainly one of the best Superman stories that's come out in the past few decades, which was Superman Birthright with Mark Waid. I'm curious how that project came together, and how did that become, like, how did you get into DC after working for Marvel for so long?
So I was working for Marvel, and then I was offered by DC to be part of Cliffhanger. So I was like, very flattered, and to be among Joe Mad and Chris Bachalo, of course, and so I was like, oh man, so I think I made it. And stuff like that. So that was the initial draw, was to do creator own stuff for Cliffhanger. I did a couple with Andy Deagle and Scott Lobdell. And then after those, they offered me Superman Birthright with Mark Waid. They pitched it to me like it was its own universe. It's like Smallville, right? It doesn't have to be part of the DC reality. And so I was excited about it. I did a bunch of concept art and sketches and stuff like that. I handed over to Mark and the editors. So yeah, it was again just this one of those things they offered to me after in between. I'm not sure, in between the Cliffhanger books. So that was a great experience. That was I think 2002, 2003. That was a long time ago, 20 years ago, right? I think.
It's amazing to
But
think
yeah,
about.
That was it was a lot of fun for sure.
Were you a big Superman fan?
Well, as I told you, one of those memorable issues to me was Superman.
We talked about that.
So yes, I was a Superman fan, especially the movies. I was I love the Christopher Reeve movie. Just those scenes where he goes into the telephone booth and goes out. It gives me some goosebumps and stuff like that. So yeah, I was a Superman fan for sure. Definitely. But also, I think I'm a bigger Batman fan, so because of the Michael Keaton movies. But yeah.
Right. One more question about this project, and I alluded to it earlier on when you took the assignment with Wolverine and the X-Men, but this seems to be even more sort of a heightened thing because it was redefining Superman, which happens every now and then, right? They have the John Byrne Man of Steel miniseries. Birthright. I think it seems to happen every 10 years. Someone kind of redefines Superman in a miniseries. But was there any kind of intimidation factor there, or did it, again, you're just kind of cool under pressure? Just another assignment.
No, just another assignment. I thought it was we were just doing our own thing. I thought we were doing like our own. It's almost like an Elseworlds thing. I didn't even think it was going to be part of the canon and stuff like that. Is it still part of the canon, or they deleted it with a new 52?
I mean, I can't
It's
really
no,
keep track, to tell you the
yeah,
truth.
I
The
know.
last I heard, everything counts and we're all in the
Yeah.
multiverse.
Oh,
And
of course, yeah,
so
yeah,
things can cross over and what have you. But yeah, I
yeah,
remember
yeah,
that it was not part of continuity when it came out, which I
yeah,
think benefited a
yeah, yeah.
lot because otherwise it would have had, big
Mhm.
ramifications, I think.
No, I never felt significant pressure. I just thought we were just doing our own thing. It was a lot of fun. I get to design a lot of stuff. They gave me a lot of freedom. Design the costumes, the Kryptonian stuff, the giant robots, the giant droid, the ships, and I love drawing some Kryptonian scenes. And yeah, nothing. I didn't think it was going to be anything, impactful in the DC universe. I was just, doing something cool with Mark. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Mm.
Is there a reason why you haven't done more work at DC? Has it just been lack of opportunities or?
I think just Marvel, just um, not really. It's just Marvel just taking care of me better. The short answer, yeah, yeah. And it's just, and to be honest, the characters in DC that I care about are quite limited outside of the Trinity, Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. I'm probably not too interested. I mean, it's fun, it's nice to draw like Aquaman or the Flash and just Justice League, but
Yeah,
without Batman and Superman there, probably not too interesting to me. While in Marvel, they could put me anywhere, and I'd find some joy in it,
interesting.
some challenge, right? So yeah.
But if anybody from DC is listening, I would love to see a
No, they're great. I love
Leinil
DC
Yu
too.
Batman, especially since
They,
you've expressed interest.
yeah, DC people are great. Ben Abernathy has always been good to me. Um, uh, um, they handed over the rights to, I think, to make your own stuff to me and Scott Lobdell and Annie Deagle. They're great guys. It's just that Marvel's just have a better working conditions for me. Let's put it that way.
Got it. I wanted to ask about a couple more Marvel projects, and then we can talk about sort of the current and the future of what you got going on. One we talked about with Mark Waid that I feel like is underrated, which is Indestructible Hulk, which I love the concept of it. Which I will summarize again for those who didn't listen to the Mark Waid episode. But it's basically that that Bruce Banner is now working for SHIELD, basically in exchange for giving him some, scientific technology and laboratory that he would allow them to point Hulk like a missile or like a weapon of mass destruction at whatever they want to be destroyed. What do you have any memories of working on that book, or did you hear that concept and be like, I'm all in, this sounds really fun to me?
It's quite hazy because it's been a while, but I did enjoy working on it. People still ask me why does he have armor and stuff like that, but I did have fun drawing that. I'm very interested in sci-fi, so having to draw technology and superheroes is just fun for me. I remember, drawing like this fake nuclear experiment town, and it was it's fun. It was fun. It was fun for sure. And that was only 6 issues, right, or 5? I think that's 5 issues.
5 issues.
That's quite a few. Yeah. It's a blur because that's like 2012, was it?
Yes,
It was 10 years ago.
13, yeah.
Yeah, but for sure, that's one of my. I mean, I always remember fun. I don't remember exactly what happened in those comic books. I just remember it was fun for me. The only comic book that I drew that I didn't really enjoy too much is Axis, I guess, because there's like 3 artist rotation for that thing. It was really
The
jarring
crossover.
to be jumping around and not knowing what to draw next and or waiting for somebody else.
Yeah.
But everything else I did is just so much fun, especially that's a Mark Waid book. And it's this. So yeah, anything with superheroes and sci-fi stuff, I'm into it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the downside of having such a long bibliography is that it's hard to remember everything.
Hey, if you have any particular questions, maybe they could jog my memory.
Sure. Yeah, no, I mean, it's sort of more impressions of, your time working on things and if anything stood out to you.
Yeah, that was I remember drawing the covers, trying to paint the covers and doing some experimentation. I did some, experiments on perspective because I just discovered Kim Jung-gi during that time, and he was like doing this amazing like 5-point perspective, the fisheye perspective. I was like messing around with that and doing some fancy lighting. But yeah, it was definitely one of my favorites, of course.
Oh, good. Glad to hear it. Another one which is more recent is Captain America with Ta-Nehisi Coates. So, I mean, that's, very interesting pairing. First of all, he's coming off of, I believe, Black Panther. And of course, his, he has a rich kind of academic writing history as well. What what can you tell us about that assignment? And because it seems a little bit outside of the wheelhouse of just kind of straight superhero adventure, although there was a lot of that, but sort of like political intrigue and things of that nature. Was that kind of like did you flex any new muscles on that? Was there something new and interesting in his writing that you hadn't done before?
Not really. I just remember there's some, Twitter, some negativity from Twitter about probably some people who didn't, are not comfortable with Ta-Nehisi for the title. But as far as the project goes, of course, it's more. It has some serious connotations. I mean, serious underlying tone. But it's to me it's another project that it's kind of, it's not too different from what I always do, to be honest. And I remember it was quite hard. Some pages were hard to do. The number of what do you call those super soldier villains he had, and
right.
And I think it was nothing really stood out when it comes to actually drawing the thing. Always some actions where I had to struggle with, but it turned out pretty well, I think. Well, what are your thoughts on it, by the way? What do you think? How do you think it stacks up compared to other stuff? Did it feel different from other superhero books?
I mean, not artistically, I think I don't think it was, as you said, sort of much different from your style, but I think your style is so well cemented now in terms of like, it's very clear from a glance that this is a you book. But I thought that, with the subject matter and, with obviously Captain America, though he has superpowers, he sort of doesn't, he's a little bit more normal, that it's always interesting to see, more of the, like what you like to do, the facial expressions and things like that. And I thought it was an interesting book. I mean, I'm sort of on the side of, I would read anything Coates writes, and because I think he brings an interesting perspective to things. So I like that kind of that pairing. I don't think you probably have had a bad writer on your career. Maybe you have,
Yeah,
but just like kind of looking through it, you've really worked with some of the best, and
yeah,
you know,
for sure.
you must be doing something right.
I know.
Yeah.
I've just been really lucky to have given opportunities from the break, from the Wolverine debut, to having worked with the industry's best. I mean, I've worked with Chris Claremont and Grant Morrison and Eric Larson. So it was just, like a string of lucky breaks and doesn't stop. So
To that point, do you have a project, if you can remember it, that? Oops.
sorry, one
That's
second.
okay. You good?
Come again.
Okay.
Yes.
I was going to say, do you have a project in your past that does not, or you feel has not gotten the recognition you think that it's deserved, or something that's kind of maybe flew under the radar, but you think is really, some of your better work?
Well, for sure that would be High Roads and Silent Dragon for Cliffhanger. Yeah,
Right.
I wish more people would have seen that, and I think they're very under. I would probably underappreciated, because very few people saw it or read it. So yeah, for sure. Those two.
Well, no, they've heard of them now. Do you want to give any kind of summary on what those miniseries were?
So High Roads was it's basically like an Indiana Jones type of thing with four characters, set in the 1940s, World War II, but it's like an alternate universe thing where some crazy stuff happening, and Silent Dragon is more like a cyberpunk themed, set in Tokyo, Japan, and I don't know, like 100 years from now and stuff like that. So it's robots, samurais. It's got a giant samurai with a Gatling gun. You probably saw in Sucker Punch, similar to that. But yeah, it's basically droids and samurais and stuff like that.
Yeah, awesome stuff. Really enjoyed.
So check it out, guys. It's a lot of fun. So if you can find it in your dollar bins, it's probably there somewhere.
For sure, that's our space. One more question, and that is, as I said, you have a very distinctive style, and I think very recognizable. Do you remember if there was a time where you felt like you kind of you worked out what that style was, and you felt like, okay, I'm now, this is me, I'm confident from here on out, I feel like I'm kind of like locked down, and ready to go?
Yeah. So the earliest comic book that I would say, okay, here's the work that I'm proud of, even till today. Not too much, but it's something that I'm not too embarrassed of. I think it's the X-Men annual with Grant Morrison, the Sideways X-Men thing, if you've seen it. So I think that was the first work where I'd say, hey, I think I'm proud of this one, and something I think I'm ready now, right? Because prior to that, that's just I thought my work is still like an amateur stuff. Yeah. So from that's year 2000 onwards. After that, I did Silent Dragon, I did High Roads, and Superman Birthright, and the rest of the Marvel stuff I did. So everything up to that point and to this day, I'm proud of. Prior to that, I did Wolverine, I did X-Men with Chris Claremont, but I think I could have done better. I wish I was a better artist during that time. I could have done better. I could have given Chris Claremont's script more justice. Yeah, but yeah. So 2001 onwards.
So it's been a good millennium
so
far.
Yeah.
Great. Well, Leinil, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. Before we go, I would love to hear, what you have coming up that you can, some things I'm sure you can't talk about, some things maybe, and then where fans can find you online.
Oh, so right now I'm just for a couple of years now, I think I've just been doing random covers for Marvel and Star Wars. So if you guys go to your comic book stores, just ask for my for my cover checklist. I hope they have it. I've just been doing random covers. Right now I'm doing Wolverine. I'm doing Dark Droids, Darth Vader, and a lot of different random covers Marvel throws at me, and it's a lot of fun. I realize that I'm really enjoying just the illustration, just drawing the image, actual image, that I'm really having fun. It satisfies me and it keeps my name out there, and I hope fans are enjoying it. You guys can find me on Twitter, Leinil Yu, Instagram, same, and Facebook. So I'm there usually. So yeah.
Hey everybody, we're back. Thank you so much for listening to that interview. What did you think? I thought Leinil was a fascinating guy. He seems to have a very level head about all of the talent he's worked with, all the big books he's worked on, and some storylines that, of course, have been adapted for the big screen or the small screen, such as Secret Invasion. So it was a great pleasure talking to him. I wish him all the success as he goes forward. I'm sure you're going to see more from him all the time. So thank you for listening. Thank you for viewing. Thank you for rating 5 stars, reviewing, subscribing. We appreciate it. Let's keep this train rolling, and we'll see you next time.